Okay, welcome everyone to New York City Local Law 97 Compliance as a Service 8-part webinar series. Today we are going to be focusing on part 6, which is clean power. Very pleased to have Kyle Schroff with us here today from Opal Energy and Opal Solar. He will be describing the business case for clean power installations, which we believe is oftentimes misunderstood on the part of a lot of our clientele. So for those of you who've been on our previous webinars, what I'm going to go through next is a repeat. So please bear with us. But for those who are new, we believe this is really important for you to understand with regards to our proposition, which is compliance as a service for New York City Local Law 97, utilizing a smart building upgrade program with 100% financing. And our smart building upgrade program, please understand, is applicable to any major market, any large urban center with larger commercial properties where our finance partners operate. So in New York City, with regards to New York City Local Law 97, we can provide compliance as a service, which is full compliance with New York City Local Law 97, utilizing 100% creative financing to pay for all of the related soft and hard costs of a smart building upgrade. We have a network of finance partners, and which is needed because each and every finance strategy has its limitations. So our program, our upgrade or compliance program, includes 3 phases of work. Phase 1 is a cost savings phase where we seek to save our clients money in an array with utilizing an array of strategies. We typically begin by collecting utility bills and contracts. We then bring in our vendor, National Utilities Refund, that does professional quality evaluations on 6 different utilities, which is gas, electric, water, sewer, waste, and telecom. And they will do this with their own staff. They will look for any and all errors in the utility programs and the utility billing. About 70% of the time they find savings, and when they find savings, they split the savings 50-50 with the owner, typically for 36 months, after which time all of the savings goes to the owner. So this is also really helpful. It's really the beginning of an upgrade program, regardless of who's doing the working the program. You need to start by understanding the utilities, the utility costs, who is providing the power to the buildings. It turns out there's a wholesale marketplace where there are potential savings as well. So along with the utility auditing, we will also do tax strategy auditing. We will look for various tax strategies, including cost segregation, EPA 179D, R&D tax credits. There's an array of tax strategies that are applicable to a wide range of commercial properties. And we work with a couple of specialty tax firms, one in Texas, one in Florida. They do this work nationwide, and they are very effective at finding a number of savings with taxes in commercial buildings. We will also do an insurance audit. In New York City here, we've got 2 very well-established auditing firms, actually, that have been in the commercial real estate insurance business for nearly 40 years. And they will look at the commercial building insurance policies and look for savings that way. We've got a vendor that will do lighting as a service, lighting upgrades, where they will bring all the financing. Another company will do clean air as a service. They will install clean air technologies, COVID-related technologies for no out-of-pocket cost. So this phase 1 is really again, it's a great way for us to get started with new clients who we need to basically, we need to establish our trust and our credibility with them. So this is why we begin our program that way. Now, for those building owners who want to fast track the project and the program, we can start phase 2 at the same time that we start phase 1. In phase 2 is when we actually begin to work on the building. And in phase 2, we're going to be looking to significantly improve the energy efficiency of the building by lowering operating expenses, lowering utility costs. And there is an array of strategies for doing that. We will also bring financing for these energy efficiency upgrades. Depending on the project, we will go to one or more of our finance partners to bring the best overall financing package to the table. Typically, we can find 100% financing, not always, but typically we can, and we always seek to do so. This is when a contract will need to be signed with both our finance group and with our general contractor, as well as our engineering firm. So this is that phase 2 is really more or less like a conventional construction project, but rather than doing just conventional construction upgrades, we're doing energy efficiency upgrades. So after we work on the building in phase 2, hopefully in phase 1, we've saved money. Most of the time we do. In phase 2, we are working to make the building more efficient. We are driving down electricity usage, gas usage, water usage. By so doing, for those of you who understand commercial building finance, by lowering utility costs, we are going to be lowering operating costs. Typically, utility costs are about 30% of total operating costs and expenses. So if we can lower the utility costs by 20 to 40%, which is typical, on average, 30% is a very, very good assessment for what is very typically available to us. That's going to drive down overall operating expenses by about 10%. So if operating expenses are dropped by 10%, lowered by 10%, that means inherently that the net operating income will be increased by 10%. And so that means that the building will start to produce greater cash flow on a monthly basis. The other great part about this, of course, is that the value of the building is based on the net operating income. So if the NOI increases 10%, the value of the building will also increase 10%. So in phase 2, when our program was working really well, we have significantly lowered utility costs, significantly lowered operating expenses, increased NOI. Typically, the range, a reasonable range to expect is 5 to 10%, which goes right to the increase in the valuation. And so then it gets even more interesting because now we move into phase 3 of the program. Phase 3 of the program includes clean power installations. So anybody who's been involved with clean power for any length of time knows that it makes absolutely no sense to install clean power technologies on an inefficient building. So you see our program is building on itself. And in phase 3, then we're installing clean power technologies in a much more energy efficient building. Thus, we don't have to install as much clean power technology, and what clean power technology we install is going to be that much more productive. So the other thing that's really, really great about this phase 3 is that all these clean power technologies, solar, wind, cogeneration, other types of strategies, they produce power, and thus there's a value through that production. That value through that production will pay down the initial cost of the technology. Now, again, we can finance that technology, but there's a payback period. So once the technologies are paid back, these installed technologies on a building will then represent additional revenue streams for the building. So when our program has really worked great, we've saved money in phase 1 for the client. We've also looked at some really important line item expenses. In phase 2, we made the building more efficient. We've used 100% financing. The building is now 20 to 40% more efficient. The net operating income has been increased. The value has been increased. And we've also added some additional revenue streams through these clean power technologies. So this program is tremendously powerful. And what you're going to find is that we can utilize that program as part of our value add brokerage that I'll get into in a moment. So with regards to Local Law 97, for those of you who don't know about this law, it is a hugely impactful law. It was passed in April of 2019, and it affects buildings greater than 25,000 square feet in all 5 boroughs of New York City. It's estimated that there are about 60,000 buildings that are covered by this law. It sets increasingly stringent limits on carbon emissions per square foot. First, a lower emission limit in 2024, and then an even more aggressive lower limit in 2030. And the intention of the bill is to bring about a 40% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 and an 80% reduction by 2050. There is flexibility to comply with renewable energy credits or emission offsets. And very importantly, there are very, very stiff penalties for lack of compliance. So covered buildings are buildings that are included, that have to comply. Again, these are buildings over 25,000 square feet, or 2 or more buildings on the same tax lot that together exceed 50,000 gross square feet, or 2 or more buildings held in the condominium form of ownership that are governed by the same board that, again, together exceed 50,000 square feet. Buildings that are not covered, electrical and generating steam plants, buildings not more than 3 stories, city-owned buildings, housing developments, religious organization properties, and property owned by housing developments. So on May 1st, starting in 2025, all building owners who own buildings above 25,000 square feet will start to report their greenhouse gas emissions. This is going to have to be done by either a licensed engineer or architect. So it's starting in 2025. So the law begins in 2024. And after the first year, then the reporting begins as to what those greenhouse gas emissions are. This is important to understand. This is not a law to be playing around with, so to speak. The fines can be very, very steep. So for owners of buildings that exceed their annual emission limits, there is a penalty of $268 per metric ton per year. So buildings, larger buildings can exceed these limits by thousands of tons. This can be a very large number. Failure to file the annual report in a timely manner will lead to a fine of 50 cents per square foot per month. So a 100,000 square foot building would be fined $50,000 per month for delaying their reporting. And then making a false statement on a report will lead to a fine of $500,000. So the fines are steep, but the good news is that really this could and should be motivation for building owners in New York City to move beyond what I like to call 20th century methods and modes of operating their buildings. In the 21st century, there are so many opportunities and strategies and technologies, and our ability to significantly improve the performance of buildings is outstanding these days. So this is really motivation to push folks forward and get them to be upgrading their buildings and increasing the valuation of their buildings as well. So I'm also a commercial real estate agent, and in our commercial real estate world, this I like to call, this is the E equals MC squared of the commercial real estate world. It's a simple equation, just like that equation is very simple, and yet it's really what every building owner, every investor is focused on all the time. In fact, what I hear all the time is value add. When I'm talking to potential buyers, they're looking for value add deals, value add, which usually to them means that there are additional air rights so they can build additional, square footage, or there are commercial spaces that they can convert to residential. That's what value, or they can upgrade the building and, maybe it's tired, it needs an aesthetic upgrade. It turns out that there's a whole huge value add component to their buildings that's almost always overlooked, which is the overall energy and environmental performance of the building. And so again, as I've already indicated, when we conduct these smart building upgrades, we will lower operating expenses, we will increase NOI, net operating income. So if the cap rate remains the same, but the net operating income increases, the value increases. The best scenario is when the net operating income increases and the cap rate decreases. And arguably, when we are upgrading buildings, especially in New York City, and we are eliminating the potential fines and liabilities from Local Law 97, we are arguably lowering the cap rate. We are making the building inherently more valuable. So what we want to be emphasizing today is the value proposition of both smart building upgrade programs, our smart building upgrade program, frankly, and especially the clean power installations that we include in phase 3 that really, really take the overall added value to an entirely different level. So I want to now show you folks some of the leading edge clean power technologies that we are working with potentially. We're still waiting for some of these vendors to be ready for prime time. But what we want you to know is that in 2022 today, there is really a clean technology revolution happening. Almost every day there are new clean power, clean tech, and prop tech firms coming online with just really amazing, amazing offerings. And this is another value that we bring to the table because we're constantly doing outreach, making strategic partnerships to be bringing the best and brightest of these clean power and clean tech and prop tech technologies to our innovation hubs. So the first one we're going to show you today is with Onyx Solar. So imagine, folks, imagine you're developing a new building. You're a developer, and if it's a new building, if it's in a large urban center, very good chance that it will be a building with curtain wall construction. So curtain walls are basically glass walls that do not provide any structural integrity for the building. They're attached to the steel structure, and 99% of curtain walls that have been installed to date are just glass. Well, Onyx Solar can be utilized for that purpose. And rather than just having a glass wall that produces no power, their curtain walls will produce power from their solar panels, which will pay back within, I believe, 2 to 3 years is their payback. After which time, these exposed exterior walls with their curtain walls will literally become a revenue stream for the building. So, and Onyx Solar is, in our view, a leading company with this sort of technology. Oops, sorry about that. Okay, this next technology is really, I find really, really compelling. I had a call personally with the entrepreneur who developed this technology. They're out of the Netherlands. We're in the early stages of discussing with them. They're not quite ready for prime time in New York City, although they did open up a New York City office. So I have been really personally very, very interested in the combination of solar and wind technologies. I read an article from in Scientific American about a year ago where they documented the benefits of solar and wind technologies being combined. And why is that? Because solar, of course, is optimal, produces its optimal output of power during daytime and during summer months. Wind technologies tend to produce their greatest amount of power in the evenings and during the winter months. So there's a clear synergy between the two. And this company, PowerNest, has brought together both solar and wind in a modular framework that can be utilized on almost any roof configuration, and it can be installed in one day. And more importantly, it can produce 6 times more power per square foot than just solar PV panels. This is PowerNest. This is very compelling.
Ibis Power is a scale-up company from Eindhoven, the Netherlands, and we are founded on the beliefs that we must care about climate change and we must care about living in balance with our planet and with nature.
Rotterdam is committed to fight climate change on the local level, and that's why we, together with more than 100 companies and organizations, made the Rotterdam Climate Agreement. And our purpose is to become a climate neutral city.
Thanks to the governments, building owners and building developers today need to apply sustainability measures. One way that they can do it is PowerNest.
What I especially like about the PowerNest is that it's a smart combination between generating solar power and wind power, and especially in a city like Rotterdam with a lot of rooftops.
This PowerNest solution generates 6 to 8 times more energy than normal solar panels. Because of the combination of wind and solar, it's generating 50 to 20% more efficiency, not only for the solar panels, but it also generates 24 hours a day energy from the wind.
So how does PowerNest work? PowerNest combines wind and solar energy in one integrated structure. So in one way, we lift up the whole roof surface, go 1 meter over the facade, making use in the most efficient way of the roof surface for solar panels. We capture the wind under it, accelerate it through a wind turbine, which is an acceleration between 140 and 160%, the most efficient way for wind energy. And that same wind cools the panel from the bottom.
It was really nice to design with PowerNest as a design solution for this project, a very sustainable solution. It was actually not part of our design in the beginning. It was part of the design of the other architect. But then the wind calculations came and it appeared that it was way more efficient to place it on our building where we are close to the river. We have a lot of wind coming in. First thing we said to the client was, okay, we can add it to our building, but we need 3 PowerNests, not 1. So that it can really fill the whole roof and it really can become a crown of the building and really part of the design.
But we already have the design on the drawing table to produce even 25% more energy on the roof space. I see a future where all buildings are fully supplying their own energy needs. PowerNest opens this possibility even for the large buildings, creating smart, self-sustaining, and healthy cities.
I love that technology. I have to tell you, folks, I think that is just really fantastic. So we're waiting for them to be ready for prime time in New York, and hopefully we'll be doing a lot of work with them, not just in New York City, but throughout the country as our innovation hubs grow throughout the country. So, whoop, let me go again. There we go. Okay. Now, so I was recently introduced to the lead attorney at Co-op City in the Bronx. And for those of you who don't know, Co-op City is in Northeast Bronx. There are 35 multifamily co-op buildings as part of the development. And so they have their own power plant that burns natural gas. And in fact, it provides more power than is used by those 35 buildings. This is a major, large power plant. And the city is wanting them to try to find an alternative to natural gas, a cleaner alternative to natural gas. So where in the world is that alternative coming from? Of course, it's going to be coming from the world of these new clean fuels that are coming online, which are very, very promising. You know, the hydrogen fuels, we've been hearing about that for years now, waiting for the hydrogen era to arrive. And for a whole host of reasons, it hasn't quite arrived yet. But we're getting closer. And there's this, here's the deal with hydrogen, for those of you who don't know. Hydrogen has to be produced. It's typically produced from water. Water, of course, is H2O, and hydrogen molecules are H2. So hydrogen is produced when water molecules are split and such that oxygen and hydrogen is released. The hydrogen is then captured and stored and then utilized, you know, as a fuel. So if you're using electrons generated by fossil fuels to create that hydrogen, that's not obviously not a green alternative to our dirty fuel problem. But if the electrons that are used to split the water molecules are coming from renewable resources, that is what is referred to as green hydrogen. And that is what this is actually New York State, the governor is very, very interested in this. There's just a pretty significant investment in some demonstration projects. And there's a company called Plug Power in New York State that's taking a leadership role. Let's learn a little bit more about green hydrogen.
Majority of electricity from sustainable resources such as wind and
let's go back to the beginning.
Green hydrogen, and how is it produced? In order to combat climate change, we need to adopt electrification as a clean and sustainable solution to many of our transport and industrial needs. Today, we generate the majority of electricity from sustainable resources such as wind and solar, but these sources sometimes struggle to fuel industry and larger, heavier modes of transport, like buses, lorries, and ships. That's where hydrogen comes in. Although hydrogen is a colourless, odourless gas, we use colours to describe how it's produced, and the process is used to create it. Two of the commonly referenced colours are grey and blue. Grey hydrogen is produced from natural gas, creating damaging CO2 in the process. In the future, blue hydrogen will also be made from natural gas, and some of the carbon dioxide produced will be captured and stored, but it's not possible to capture all of it. The cleanest form of hydrogen production is green, and this is the only type produced using renewable energy, resulting in zero CO2 emissions. Clean renewable electricity is used to power an electrolyzer, splitting water into hydrogen and oxygen gas with no carbon emissions. The hydrogen can be stored and transported for use as necessary. So, green hydrogen is incredibly versatile. We can create, store, and transport it as required. And by using renewable energy, we can ensure the process creates zero carbon emissions, helping to accelerate your green energy goals. And all it leaves behind is water. Whether your hydrogen demand for your business is large or small, we can work with you to find a green hydrogen solution that meets your needs. Another step towards a better future, quicker. What is?
And next and last clean power technology that I wanted to introduce you folks to today, which is really, really very near and dear to my heart, is algae fuel from algae or algae. So, you know, algae, as some of you may or may not know, is the very foundation of the ocean's entire, you know, food system. You know, it's the primary fuel, the primary food rather, for aquatic organisms, of which, you know, that creates the whole ecosystem of the ocean. Algae are, of course, they're plants, and because they're plants, they absorb sunlight, but more importantly, they absorb carbon dioxide. And then through photosynthesis, they will produce carbohydrates and thus fuels. And so this is a very, very promising technology. Again, like green hydrogen, a lot of work being done on this. ExxonMobil, dare I say, is really on top of this research. And this is tremendously promising.
So this is the dried algae product. After we dry it, we grind it up into powder, and then we extract the oil out of it. That oil is then refined into diesel fuel or jet fuel. The fuel that we're producing is exactly the same in terms of performance as gasoline or diesel or jet. It's just a lot cleaner. I think the big difference is that all the other biofuels, you're growing it, you're just getting biofuel. In this case, every gallon of biofuel, you get 10 pounds of food with it.
Dave Hazelbeck is the CEO and founder of Global Algae Innovations, a San Diego-based company growing algae on a farm in Hawaii, which he thinks could change the landscape of food and oil production.
There's studies that show with algae grown to replace a large percentage of the animal feed, you could actually solve global warming to a large extent simply by doing that. Second thing is the leading cause of global water impairment is runoff from agriculture. When we grow algae, there's no runoff. All the nutrients are captured in the algae. Environmentally is for deforestation. The leading cause of deforestation is for food production. With algae producing 40 times more per acre, that means if we plant 1,000 acres of algae, that's 40,000 acres of crops that don't need to be planted. So the work here we're doing is extremely important. The world desperately needs algae biofuels and algae protein production. It's going to have a big impact economically. It's going to have a big impact on reducing poverty, improving standards of living, because it'll create jobs and revenue in rural areas. That's why I decided to start this company, so that it could happen quickly, because it's too important for the world for it not to happen. So we're standing right now in one of our larger algae raceways. This is about a 2-acre raceway, but these raceways can be scaled to much larger. We look at making individual raceways up to 200 acres. And this is next to a power plant. It's unique because that allows us to capture carbon dioxide and avoid that discharge and reuse it, and that prevents it from going into the atmosphere and causing global warming. If every power plant had an algae farm next to it, it could potentially solve the global warming issue entirely.
In simple terms, algae is fairly easy to grow, and it's able to flourish just about anywhere, whether it be freshwater, seawater, or brackish water. All it really needs is a good supply of carbon dioxide and plenty of sunshine. And while the location of Global Algae Innovations in Kauai makes sense, Hazelbeck's team has come across some obstacles trying to scale the process up.
You can see with all these tremendous benefits, why aren't we doing it now? Why hasn't it been done? The problem is that the costs are too high throughout the entire process. And so it really requires hundreds of innovations throughout the entire process in order to reduce the cost, because it's about 10 times too high.
The problem associated with large-scale production has put similar companies out of business, but the approach of Global Algae Innovations is different. Instead of seeing a roadblock, Hazelbeck and his team saw the potential to innovate solutions.
Our approach was different in that we looked at every single step, developed a model to look at the costs, and the other thing is we didn't give up on any critical issue. So a gallon of oil when we started would have been about $30 a gallon. Now, with the innovations we've made over the last few years, we're down in the range of $2 to $3 a gallon as a projected cost. Now, we're not there yet from the standpoint of production, but depending on how fast we can get to scale, we can potentially have solutions within the next few years. And that's really exciting. It'll change the geopolitics of the world. A lot of the reasons we have wars are because of fights over resources. And by creating a more equitable distribution, with countries being able to make their own, it should lead to a more stable and peaceful world.
Algae biofuel could potentially be used in engines that we already have, and there would be no additional infrastructure needed, as it would be available at your local gas station.
As we develop technology, we plan to partner with lots of people to have it expand in other areas. We're not trying to be the only company doing this, because we're in it because of the impact. I always talk with our team, what they're doing is going to change the entire world in the sense of both the protein and the oil production, because both are desperately needed.
To hear more about
So this is
Okay, so now at this point in time, I'd like to introduce Kyle Schroff, who is going to discuss the business case for solar and renewable energy. So now we're taking this into a much more practical, taking it from sort of the big picture, all the amazing technologies that are out there, to your particular buildings and the value proposition for bringing solar and renewable energy to your buildings. Kyle?
Absolutely. Yeah. So thanks so much for having us on today, Robert. We appreciate it. And we're looking forward to sharing with your audience what we perceive as one of the ultimate tools for increasing net operating income by reducing expenses and creating a new source of revenue. So this tool, of course, is solar. And our company, Opal Energy Group, is a vertically integrated solar company. We specialize in commercial and industrial solar applications, and we are a full EPC, meaning we sell, design, engineer, procure, and construct the solar system for our customers. So we're based out of New Jersey, but we are a national company that can facilitate solar in multiple markets, including but not limited to Jersey, New York, PA, Massachusetts, Florida, so on and so forth. So I'm one of the co-founders and partners here at Opal Energy Group, and we are excited to share the techniques and methods of utilizing solar as a revenue producing asset for your business or property, and to show everyone that solar is not just a feel-good, environmentally friendly asset, but one that actually has a significant business case. So let me see. Oh, so you have the slide going here. So I want to start by asking everybody just a quick question. What comes to mind when you hear renewable energy? Again, what comes to mind when you hear renewable energy? For a lot of people, that is what you see right here, which is, let me see, do you have the phrase pulled up here? There we go. Which is green energy, carbon neutral, sustainability, and energy efficiency. So, and these are all great benefits of solar and renewable energies. However, this is not what we're going to be discussing today. Instead, I want to go over a couple of different terms. If you want to go to the next slide, Robert. What should come to mind when you hear renewable energy? And these are phrases that we would like people to think of when they hear these words. So it's going to be net operating income, cash flow, operational efficiency, equity increase, and value add. Now, for many people, these are the only words associated with renewable energy are the prior. These, however, are all terms that all business owners and C-suite executives are familiar with and use on a daily basis, yet they're rarely used in correlation with solar or renewable energy. We'd like to obviously change that outlook because we look at solar through a bit of a different lens. Next slide there. So solar is a revenue producing asset. And again, I'll repeat that. Solar is a revenue producing asset. What does that mean? Solar produces an essential commodity, which is electricity. And this electricity can either be utilized by a business or property owner, or it can be sold. Solar does not just sit on a roof and lose value. Instead, it actually creates revenue, creates cash flow, and creates the equity. So to dig into that a little bit more, I'd like to discuss what we consider to be the 5 foundations of solar as a revenue producing asset. If you want to go to the next slide there. Perfect. So the first piece of this is electric supply bill savings or even elimination. So the one benefit that most people know about as it relates to solar is the ability to save money on or even eliminate your electric supply bill. So when we do a design for a customer, we have our team take a look at 12 months of historical usage on their electric bill, and we size the system to offset 100% of that electric supply bill. Our goal is always going to be to eliminate the supply portion of the bill, which obviously results in significant savings, oftentimes hundreds of thousands, or in some cases even millions of dollars over the life of the system. Another important aspect of the energy savings is that you're also hedging against what's an inevitable increase in electric rates by the electric company. As we all know, the electric companies never drop their utility rates. So when you own a solar system, that rate will always stay the same for you because this is your system. The second piece of this are cash incentives from the state. Now, we're based out of New Jersey. New Jersey has a robust cash incentive program for any business that goes solar. They pay a cash incentive for 15 years. This is actual money that gets deposited directly into the bank account of a business or individual. Jersey is not the only state that offers this program. As a matter of fact, many states in the Northeast and all over the country have similar programs, including New York, who actually has a very robust, what's known as the megawatt block incentive program, that actually pays an upfront payment, if you will, after PTO or permission to operate of the system. And it is a very, very significant number in the case of almost every single installation. The third piece of this is the federal tax credit. It is currently at 26%. And this is a direct federal tax credit for the business or the owners of the business. This tax credit equates to 26% of the system cost. So on a hypothetical, let's say $100,000 system, that's a $26,000 direct tax credit that can be taken in year one. And obviously, as the project scales, so does the tax credit. So on $1 million project, that tax credit, again, which can be taken in year one, could be $260,000. So if hypothetically they owed that in the 2022 tax year, they would no longer owe a dime. This is obviously a significant incentive and one that many businesses use to mitigate their tax liability. Fourth piece of this is, and again, following along with the tax side of it, is depreciation. So any of you that are business owners or property owners are obviously familiar with depreciation. Solar is a piece of equipment that you can depreciate like any other asset. You can either utilize what's known as the 5-year Maker's Accelerated Depreciation Schedule, or you're able to take 100% bonus depreciation this year. This is set to fall from 100% to 80% in 23, 60% in 24, and so on and so forth. And we'll go over the depreciation element a little bit more later on, but this is obviously a significant benefit as well. Last but not least is something that many business owners and solar companies, for that matter, do not take into account, but in our opinion is one of the greatest benefits of a solar installation for a business or a property owner. Net operating income is utilized to factor property valuation. I know Robert spoke about this prior, and anybody in the commercial real estate world understands this concept in depth. However, you take the net operating income of a property, you divide it into the market cap rate for that location, and this is exactly how all commercial properties are valuated. There are essentially two levers that increase NOI. It's creating more income through increases in rent, so on and so forth, or it's reducing expenses. So solar is able to accomplish these items in one fell swoop. When you reduce, let's say $100,000 per year in electric costs in a very large solar installation, you essentially are adding that $100,000 to your net operating income. So in using let's say 6% market cap rate, just as an example, $100,000 divided into 6%. I mean, that's a $1.6 or so million increase in valuation on the property just by going solar or other renewable energy sources here. So this is the equity that you built by going solar, and 9 out of 10 times this increase in value is actually greater than the system cost to begin with. So pretty impressive numbers. It's also important to point out that these do not have to be owner occupied spaces. And I think this is something that's a bit of a misnomer in the solar industry. In fact, a large majority of the companies that we actually work with are landlords that lease their commercial spaces out, or multifamily properties, so on and so forth. They utilize solar as a value add component, and they're able to charge their tenants for the electric usage. This monetizes the solar and in turn allows a significant return on investment and obviously achieves all of the above examples here. So if we want to change the slide over, Robert. There we go. So let's take a look at a real life example, just a good example of a solar project that we're actually currently in the process of starting here. So a typical solar array, and when I say typical, solar is based on the bill, correct? So it's a large range, but this is what we tend to see as a typical structure for a 20 to 30,000, let's say, square foot place. Typical solar array creates over $1 million in incentives, has a return on investment of 250% or more, offsets 100% of a business's electric supply bill. Again, that's always our goal, is to be able to build a system that allows that. Cash flows from day one if financed, and if not financed, even has a 3 to 4 year cash on cash payoff period, and can also be paired with battery backup or EV charging stations. So if we look to the left there, utilizing our typical system, we can see that this 100 kW system or 105 kW system costs $285,000. That's the sticker price on it, but creates a total incentive structure of over $1 million and is able to offset their electric supply bill in this particular situation by 100%. So pretty significant there. If we want to get to the next slide here. And then we're going to actually go over the specific numbers on this project. I'm hoping everybody can see that. So on a purchase, on just the purchase side of things, and again, we obviously offer robust robust financing structures for anybody looking to go solar that include 5, 6, 10, 15, and 20-year financing structures. There's PPAs, there's lease agreements, so on and so forth. But just to dig into it, to show you the actual cash on cash basis of this, on a $285,000 system, you see here to the left, these individuals in this company, in this scenario, are creating a $74,000 tax credit in year one. Now, this is an LLC that owns this property. Most companies, even if they're corporations, the actual business, or excuse me, the building is owned by an LLC. So this is flow through, right? So all of this flows through directly to the owners. In this case, it is a 50-50 partnership structure. So this $74,000 tax credit actually flows directly through from the LLC to both of the owners. They are, and to keep with the tax side of this, if we flow over to the depreciation table that you see there on the fourth array over, you'll see that they are able to create depreciation of $91,000 on this project. Now, this is utilizing the maker's accelerated depreciation schedules, and not to get into the dry accounting of this, but you can either utilize that or you can take the bonus depreciation. In this case, they are opting to take the bonus depreciation. So just pulling out my calculator real quick, we can see that $74,131,000 in the federal tax credit and $91,780 in depreciation. And these individuals are getting $165,000 worth of tax write-offs basically in year one. That depreciation is based on their income bracket, right? So it does fluctuate based on, and not giving accounting advice here, but it does fluctuate based on the individual or the company. So those are the two tax pieces of it. And then this is a New Jersey job. So you'll see that New Jersey is paying a cash income for 15 years here, over $12,000 a year for that 15-year period of time, for a total value of $189,000. And this is cash. So this is being deposited directly into their bank account. And is an additional revenue source essentially for the company. And the final piece of this is the utility income that you see here. So these individuals actually lease this space out. So this is income for them. They are billing back their tenants. The tenants are actually saving money on their ultimate electric bill. And the owners are actually creating a residual source of income here in the utility income bracket there. So they're creating over $18,000 a year for the next 25 years, which is what the solar system is warranted at. And that goes up with an escalator that mirrors essentially the electric utility rate that we see, unfortunately, raised 2 to 3% on a year-by-year basis as well. So you'll notice that this has a 4-year payoff structure if they were to buy it outright. If we roll over to the 6-year financing, all those numbers stay exactly the same. But you'll notice when we look at cumulative cash flow, there is absolutely not a single year where they are actually out of pocket cumulatively because they've utilized all of these incentives on the front end. And this system actually, what we like to call cash flows for the client and for the customer in this case. So, I meet with owners and C-suite executives on a weekly basis who run profitable businesses and are well-versed in financial and operational efficiency. Oftentimes, however, they're completely unaware that solar is able to offer such a valuable business case. Normally after our meeting, I can see a light bulb go off. And as they now understand, solar can not just pay for itself, but actually create a new source of revenue, save significant amounts of money, and create equity in their properties or businesses. So, I hope through this webinar, we were able to at least help the audience come to that aha moment and realize why this makes sense for almost all businesses and properties out there. If we want to go to the next slide there real quick, right? So we've talked obviously a lot about solar today. We are again a solar company. We do offer ancillary services, however, as does Robert here with what we have set up here. So Solar is great, but it is by no means the only solution to these ends. And as Robert mentioned earlier, oftentimes it is an amazing structure to be able to get your building in a position where it is utilizing the least amount of utility cost on the front end, right? By efficient building standards, things of that nature. But these are the ancillary services that pair well with solar. So battery backups, EV charging stations, LED lighting, HVAC efficiency, sealing the thermal envelope, wind, and of course, load shedding. So these are some of the other things that that we look at and consider when we go into a project with an all-encompassing approach, right? So solar is not always going to be the end-all be-all, and oftentimes it is the largest lever, quite frankly, not from a cash flow perspective, but is by far not the only. And these are all pieces of a project that can really turn that NOI up and make it a more efficient project for the customer. So yeah, that is it in a nutshell. And obviously here's some of our contact information. We'd love to answer any questions anybody has from the solar side of things or just the renewable energy side of things. And you can connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. You can connect directly with me on LinkedIn, and you can check our website out at opal.energy if anybody has any interest. So I absolutely appreciate the time, Robert.
Great job, Kyle. Thank you so much. At this point in time, we'll open up to questions and answers. Please place your question in the Q&A, or you can place it in the chat if anybody has any questions.
Look at that. I must have explained it so well that nobody had a question.
Great job that, all the questions that folks had apparently were answered. Wait, here we go.
Thanks, Karen.
Okay, so yeah, so some folks want a copy of this. Glenn Capel. Hi, Glenn. So glad that you made it. Hi, Carolyn. I see that you made it as well. Great to be seeing you guys. Continuing to hopefully get value out of these webinars. So it looks like, so we do have, we are recording this. And for those of you who want copies of the recording, please reach out to me. And so this was part 6 of our 8-part series. We're going to be off in August. We'll be picking it up in September. Please reach out to us at, oh, here we go. Sorry, just got a question that came in. How much renewable energy can be produced on an average New York City building? Also, you did not speak about storage. What part does that play? Kyle, you want to take that on?
Yeah, absolutely. So on an average New York City building, average is a very ambiguous term, especially when it comes to New York City. We do see less, I can just answer that quite frankly. We're going to see less of not a use case, but definitely less of an offset ability from a supply side when it comes to a lot of New York City buildings, simply because we have so much vertical space and so little horizontal space. So, we do a lot of work in Florida, in New Jersey, in Pennsylvania. These are areas where warehouse space is vast. So 100,000 square foot in New Jersey, let's say, is oftentimes going to be comprised in a single story, meaning there's a big footprint there. There's a lot of solar that can fit. In a New York City building, 100,000 square foot could be, a very tall building, in which case the actual footprint for the solar is relatively small. Now, there are certainly options for that. And I believe one of the items that Robert had showed, which was the Power Nest, there is a really cool alternative, I think, for buildings that do not have the space for solar. That being said, again, on a dollar for dollar basis, solar is always going to make sense because you are paying for the solar panels that you have on a per watt basis, right? So the offset you get from a 10 kilowatt system is going to be the same on a dollar for dollar basis as a 100 kilowatt system or a 1 megawatt system, because that cost is valued based on what you're actually producing from the solar. So hopefully that answers that question. And then on the storage side of it, storage is a really viable alternative for buildings, especially in the commercial space, that utilize a lot of, or that create, I suppose, a lot of demand. So a lot of peak demand. Storage is then in turn utilized to not load shed specifically, but to take those peak demand times. They utilize the solar, takes it in through the storage, and it's going to hold it there until peak demand. And then it's going to send that energy into the main service panel and allow for a mitigation of demand, because that's where a lot of commercial companies see their big demand charges. So that's a great way to be able to utilize solar in the commercial space, in multifamily, and or even office space and things like that. Storage is an important aspect, but we feel, just quite frankly, trying to offer as much value as we can, we feel like storage is going to see its large horizon, if you will, in probably 2 to 5 years as prices start to come down a little bit on the solar storage side of things. And that's what we tell all of our clients, just to be fully transparent. If you have large demand charges, storage is a really good thing. If you don't, and you're going to be tied into the grid anyways, maybe you can wait for the prices to come down a little bit on storage solutions. Not that it's not viable, but it's we feel like in future subsequent years, we're going to see the prices normalize a little bit on the storage specifically.
Fantastic. Kyle, I want to thank you so much. You did an awesome job. I want to thank everyone for attending our webinar today. We hope that you got a lot of value out of your precious time with us. And we'll pick this up in September. Have a great August, and we'll be seeing you soon, folks. Take care.